You are now listening to the Going North podcast, where you'll receive tips and techniques to advance yourself. I'm your host, Dom Brightmon, and every week we're going to be hearing from an author who's going to share their expertise to help you charge forward in life. On a quick side note, be sure to check out Going North the book. It's available in ebook, audio, as well as paperback form for those who love to read a traditional book. Now let's get on with the show. And today on the Going North podcast, we have, you guessed it, another author, but not just any author. This author right here is going to give you the master combination to unlocking your greatness. This wonderful gentleman right here is a business executive, also has experience as a clinical professor of management and entrepreneurship, as well as a boatload of other accomplishments. This wonderful gentleman right here is an internationally acclaimed speaker for subjects ranging from behavioral intelligence all the way to personal empowerment. And you're probably wondering, who is this champion-style person I got on this podcast? I'm talking about the one, the only, Charlie Harary. How are you today, sir?
I am wonderful. I got to come back more often. I feel good after that. This is great.
Oh, awesome indeed, awesome indeed. Well, that was only just a small nutshell into the wonderful Charlie, mind filling in the cavities where I may have missed some fillings.
You hit it on the nail. Everything was wonderful. Thank you so much for the intro. And yeah, you got it, and there's so much more that I'm excited to talk about with you.
Awesome indeed, awesome indeed. Well, with all of your accomplishments being a speaker and just going down the road with all of your studies and being a former lawyer at that, what led you to finally publishing your first book?
Yeah, it's excited to have done it. It took a bunch of years to get it done. This is a decade in the making. Started off with a little bit of advice that I got when I first started my career to work on your life and not in your life. And that just sort of got me thinking and studying and researching, and that research turned into some lectures and speeches. It ended up becoming a course at a business school, and then people started asking for some advice, and I started saying the same things again and again, and I'm like, let me write it down and send it to you first, and then we'll talk. And that sort of led to the book, so I'm excited to have it done and have it out there.
That's what I'm talking about, and it's a great book indeed. I've underlined so much stuff in these pages, from green to red, back to more red to more green.
I'm happy you picked those colors.
Yes, indeed. It's almost like Christmas came twice this year.
That's where I was going.
Oh, man, because funny enough, when I showed it to one of my buddies in the mastermind, she was mesmerized for a second, because she just stopped talking and she was flipping through the pages. And she just couldn't put it down, and she was like, oh my gosh, she's talking about neuroplasticity. It's like, I would love to go to school for if I had more money.
Yeah, there's some real great stuff out there. People don't realize some of the science and what it means for each and every one of our lives, and how today studying this stuff, even just getting a sense of it, without having to go to school, but just reading about it, can really change your life, and neuroplasticity is one of them.
Yes, sir, indeed. Yes, sir, indeed. So through neuroplasticity with the schemas and everything in the book, mind delving in a little more deeper to that for those who haven't picked up the book yet?
Sure. So the way our brains work is something called neuroplasticity. What that means is that every time you have a thought, your brain actually fires off these connections between your different neurons. So, for example, when you're young, right, you learn the language of English. If you grow up, or when I was a little boy, my mom pointed over to a round object and said, Charlie, that's a ball. And in my head, my brain made a connection between the word ball and that object. Now, all that is just a thought that leads to two connections in your brain. Since I live in America, I've heard that and seen that object 100 times and a million times. So now in my head, I got a rock-solid connection between the word and that object. And that's how life works. You learn things, and your brain makes connections. You learn how to get to work, and your brain makes all these connections as to what street to go on, what exit to get off, what train to take. And so your brain is always making these connections, and it's getting rid of the ones you don't think about and building ones that you do think about. And what that means is that you right now can actually change the structure of your brain by thinking different thoughts. by learning different things, by making yourself focus on the things that are empowering and not disempowering, you can literally change the brain. And that is something that is the most empowering information that we have, because now we know that your brain isn't fixed. It's not like if you were younger, I wish I did something. At any age, you can start to change your life to becoming the person that you're meant to be.
That is so true indeed. It kind of reminds me to the classic book, Think and Grow Rich. I feel like your book just delves more deeper into the science behind the mind, because it's like first the mental, then the physical, but it doesn't really dive as deep as you did in terms of unlocking greatness, which is really great.
Yeah, thank you. And that's funny, because I'm happy you mentioned that book, because that was what got me started. That was the first book I ever read that got me thinking. Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill, and I was like, whatever the mind can conceive and believe it can achieve. And I'm like, what does that even mean? Like, how does that work? And is he right, or is he just making it up? Like, I had no idea. I'm like, it sounds good, but is it true? And that was the first time I started thinking to myself, okay, if this is true, if we've got this huge supercomputer called the brain, how does it work? And what I found in writing this book is that most people, they're not achieving their greatness because they don't think that they have the massive resources that they do, right? They think that their brain is like an old beat-up car, when in reality it's an F-16. So they don't push it hard. They don't work hard on it. They don't change because they think I'm dumb. They think if I didn't have an A when I was in the 8th grade, or if I didn't get into this job, if I didn't do this, if I didn't make it by now, then there must be something wrong with me. And so they don't work for what they have, and if they would realize the power they have inside them, they would push themselves and live a different life than they have right now.
Indeed. That kind of reminds me of one of my favorite lines underlying your book. It was on page 23, where it talks about it takes active effort.
Yeah, and that's true. You have to be able to realize that since your mind is creating new connections every second, you're either going to make your brain and change your brain by what people give you, or you're going to do it by what you want to do. You're going to be proactive. And lots of people grow up in environments and in households that were negative, or they went to school or went to work, and they have all these different experiences that are impacting their brain, right? Thoughts are coming in from something else, somebody else, right? Some other environment. And so their brains are being shaped by what is being given to them. When you look at people that have achieved great things, what you'll find is that these are people that have taken the control back. And no matter where they are the active players of their own brains. They're the ones pushing. They're the ones thinking new things. They're learning. They're forcing themselves to focus on things that make them feel good, that type of thing. And as a result, they're the active players, and they're the ones that are able to go past their environments and achieve greatness.
That's what I'm talking about, indeed. You just got to keep pushing forth and just using the power of that supercomputer brain, the F-15. Great stuff. So to get to where you currently are today, I'm pretty sure there are some trials that you had to overcome. So what trials did you have to overcome to finally get to where you are to be the CH that you are today?
I appreciate that. And we all have challenges. And from my perspective, getting into law school was difficult, and worked really hard to get into law school, trying to get good grades from all the competition that's out there and killing yourself. And then getting out of the workforce. And for me, at least, is I had a full-time job that worked me really hard. I had a family. I was involved in the community, involved in my faith. And I had all these different pockets. And when I started to do more lecturing and speaking, people started saying, hey, we got to get some of this information. You got to share this more with us. I said to myself, how could I possibly do that? I got so much going on anyways during my day. And after I started teaching and someone suggested I put this into a book, and then the publisher picked it up, I realized that if you're going to want to make something like this, you're going to have to embrace challenge. You're going to have to be able to say to yourself, I know you want to sleep more. I know you want to enjoy yourself more. I know you want to spend more time in your hobbies. I know you want to be able to spend more time with your family. But if you want to accomplish something that you're proud of, it's going to be challenging. And for the past 2 years in writing the book and doing the research of the book, you really have to suck every moment out of your day. You got to, many times, standing up all night, through the night, getting on an airplane, flying around for work, and then stopping off at a corner of an airport and having to write something to get it into the publisher. But it's the embracing of challenge that all of us have to do in order to accomplish something. Lots of people will say to me, I think I could be more, but I got no time. I'm like, well, when do you go to bed? And what are you doing all day Sunday? And how many shows are you involved in right now? And how much gossip do you speak about your parents and in-laws? Like, that's all extra stuff. You don't got to do any of that stuff. You don't got to know what's going on in 17 different Netflix shows. Like, you're just adding to your day. And they go, well, yeah, but if I don't watch this season, I'm like, what's going to happen? No actor's going to call you and say, where you been? We've been acting for the past 6 episodes. You're not watching us, right? They're fine without you. You're not getting a paycheck for watching them. And so many of us have built-in comfort and leisure and entertainment as massive pieces of our day, and we wonder why we're not accomplishing more because we feel always overwhelmed. And when we look at our day, what I have learned during this process, because I was like everybody else, just so much stuff to do, which is really just extra stuff that I put upon myself. And what I realized in this process, and in every process, is that if you want to do multiple things, you want to be a great parent and a great spouse and have a great job, it's possible, right? It's possible. It's just that it's going to be challenging. And when you embrace challenge, when you allow yourself to be uncomfortable, when you recognize that discomfort is the path, not the detour to greatness, then you get ready to feel a little bit more uncomfortable, but then be able to accomplish more things. And if people would understand that being uncomfortable is the path to something versus something to avoid, they would just do more. And they can. Like I said, you got that computer, right? And it could do so much more than we're doing with it if we just push ourselves.
That's true, and it's great we got books like yours as well as the power of the internet with YouTube to just add more RAM into our supercomputer.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also love the fact that you mentioned how, like, with all the TV shows and the binge watching, it's like those will wait for you. It's gonna be there for you. You can always go back for it later.
Yeah. You know, what's funny, when I was in college, I took a class on TV watching. You know, I figure if you're a college kid and it's on the syllabus, I'm taking it, right? I was the first one in school, first one at class. I got an A. And the first day in class, the professor just puts on an episode of, like, whatever, and we're like, oh, this is the best class ever. We get to just watch TV. But that was the last time we watched anything. The rest of it was just studying and coming up with, you know, all the psychology. And it ended up being so interesting because what he showed us was that when people watch television, right, especially today's day and age where you get to binge watch, back in the good old days when you were watching, when you had 7 channels, right? Remember those days when you had 7 channels and you had to wait for the show to come on at 8 o'clock and at 8:30 it was done and you had to wait the next week, right? Remember those days?
Oh, yeah.
So, and you had to sit through commercials, right? Those days are all, my kids have no idea what it was like to watch TV back when you were watching, you know, 8 o'clock prime time, 9 o'clock prime time. And we learned how what happens is that psychologically, you develop a connection to the characters. And the script writers, what they do is they have enough drama and enough pain and worry about each character that it starts to create a relationship that we have with those characters. And we start to psychologically need them in our lives, like as if like they're a part of our lives, like a part of our families. And when you see people that are really connected to characters in TV shows, when those TV shows are done, the season, like the next couple of days, they're depressed. Like, you know, where are my people? I got to find out what happens to them. And it's okay, but it can really suck up large portions of your life. And it's a choice that people have to make, right? Do I want to spend a large part of my life watching something that somebody else is manipulating me to enjoy? Or do I want to actually have that life for myself? Do I want to experience that? Do I want to have a life that my life has that same color and that same excitement that I am looking for when I binge watch? And that's a big question. It's a big question that people should ask themselves. I ask myself that question all the time because it's fun to sit back and just sort of get lost in a season. But it's better to have a life that has more than having a life that's just watching more.
Agreed, indeed. Funny enough, I was actually talking about that to a colleague, similar conversation, where she's really, really strict about what she watches in terms of shows, especially Japanese anime, since she's into that as well. And now some Japanese anime shows go for 300 plus episodes long, and it's like, I don't have time for that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. 300 episodes.
Oh, mackerel.
Yeah.
How many seasons do they have?
Oh my gosh, let's see. Dragon Ball Z, one of the biggest of all time. The Z version, that's about 9 seasons, and that's about a good 290 episodes. And then there's also the other versions of it. And then also there's a detective one called Case Closed. That one has over 600 plus episodes. It's been going on for, I think over 20 years in Japan.
Wow. Wow. That's incredible.
Yeah, incredible indeed. I'm pretty sure it's a good show, but I'm not sure if I want to try to binge that.
It's a great show, but don't you want a life?
Yeah, it's almost kind of like the bridge of attention. That bridge is
like. Oh man.
Oh, great stuff indeed, especially the fact that there's just so much underlined. Oh my gosh. I think it was on page 53. Funny enough, it was about the small bridge called your attention, a finite amount of stimulus that you can process at any given moment. Oh man. It's like gold.
Yeah. The bridge of attention is such a key piece in understanding your mind. See, most people think that if they're going to have to change their mind, it's going to take forever. And they're right, because so much is going on at every given moment with your brain. And so what I tell people all the time is, wait, don't worry about that. Don't worry about the billions of things going on. Don't worry about all your thoughts, right? And understand how it works. Don't worry about it, because if you're going to try to go in there and figure out all the thoughts that's going on, you're going to drive yourself crazy. But here's the secret, that you can only take in 110 bits of information per second. You can't take in the whole world. You go outside, you don't see everything. There's a billion things going on, but you can't see it because your brain can only process a small sliver of the world around you. Once you understand that you can't take it all in, you can only take in a small amount, then all you need to do is focus on that amount. Once you know that if I'm looking at one thing, I can't look at something else. It's like, just like we're talking about. When you're scrolling through the homepage of Netflix, when you're scrolling through the television, when you got that remote control in your hand, you can only pick one thing to watch at any given moment, even if you got multiple screens. You can only really pick one thing to watch. That's the bridge of attention. That's your brain. That's your schema. That's when you look out in the world, you got to pick a show. Once you know that you've got the remote control, and you can decide what you're going to look at, and that's all your brain can focus on at any given moment, now you got the ability to control what comes in to your brain. So if you're sitting around and you feel bad about something, or if you're sitting around and you feel like you don't got enough, you can focus your mind on things that'll make you happy. You can focus your mind on things that'll make you smarter, things that'll make you more successful. What we're talking about is a great example. You can come home after a long day of work, have some dinner, sit down, and focus your mind on either watching something and distracting yourself for the rest of the night, or taking half of that time and learning something that'll make you better at work, right? Picking up the phone and calling someone that'll make you have a better relationship. Just getting on the phone, playing with your kids so that your kid will have a great relationship with you when they get older. That's the bridge of attention. And you're in control of that bridge. And once you realize that every second you control where your attention goes, and when your attention goes, your energy flows, and that's how your mind changes, now you take that little bit of power and then you can use it and put it anywhere you want. And that's where we find our power.
Amen. Almost feel like going to church for a moment. So, mention Think and Grow Rich earlier that really inspired you. In addition to that one, any other books that have really inspired you to take action? If you were to name like a top 3?
So my top 3 books, I would say, in the book I quote a book called Flow. It's from a man named Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. The book is Flow, and it shows basically the power of being fully immersed in a moment. And when you're fully immersed in something, how you can become much better at that thing. But when you're distracted, you really become mediocre, right? And it's a big deal today because we live in a world where we're all constantly distracted, and we wonder why we're not greater at things, when our brains are really meant to be fully immersed, and the flow really inspired me to do that. One book that really inspired me was Man's Search for Meaning, written by a man named Viktor Frankl. And Viktor Frankl was a Holocaust survivor who survived the Holocaust and wrote a book about human behavior and taught that even if everything is stripped from you, you still have a choice in how you respond to the world. That's powerful because you can always choose how you respond. You may not choose the world around you, but you can choose how you respond. And my third most favorite book was a book called Outliers by a man named Malcolm Gladwell. And he spoke in that book about how expertise really isn't people born with better genes. It's hours put into something, right? Take the 10,000 hour rule. And that basically shows how if you really want to be good at something, you got to get working at it. But if you get working at something, you can get better as time goes on. So those are my top three, and I got some others, but those really inspire me.
A great triangle indeed, especially that Man's Search for Meaning. I listened to the audiobook a few years ago, and it was very well done. So good I'd actually pick up and then read it myself. One of the best books of all time.
Yeah.
So with all of your new amassed knowledge, if you could go back and be 25 again, but this time in the year of 2018, with all of your experience, what advice would you give to yourself?
Good question. Good question. I think I tell myself to slow down. I think 25, I was going 100 miles an hour, and I was just trying to do everything. I think when you're young, you want to do everything immediately. Then as you get older, you start realizing, hey, if I can do a couple things really well, it's better than doing everything. And not to rush. We all try to rush everything. I want everything now. And it's only getting worse. People want everything yesterday, and, they put on their phones, and they're like, why come it's not on yet? Like, it's going to space. Like, give it a second, right? Like, you get somewhere. My son the other day literally ordered something. My 5-year-old son ordered something on Amazon. Clicked, my wife bought it for him, clicked purchase, got up from the table, went to the door, opened doors, like, where is it? Like, can you give it a day to get here? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's crazy. Like, we live in a world where, like, if it's not done immediately, it's like, where is it? And then you start hearing about people that are billionaires at their 20s, and you're like, what? What's wrong with me? And the answer is, nothing's wrong with you, because the way life is supposed to work is slow and patient and deliberate and right. And when you're young, you want to do everything fast. But what I would tell myself is slow down, take it all in, do it right, do it the right way, study properly, and be good to people, and really enjoy and do things in the best way possible, and not worry about being fast and speedy, because the world is fast, and what most people don't realize that the world is going so fast that if you're going as fast as the world is going, you're both spinning out of control. But you don't got to worry. The world is moving fast. If you just slow down and be more mindful and be more thoughtful, you're going to see things that everybody else misses. And that's where you're going to find opportunities that no one else sees.
That's what I'm talking about, indeed. Slow down a bit to see the opportunities around you.
Yeah, that's what I tell myself.
There you go. Just wake up in the morning, look in the mirror, and then just put your arms out and be like, drink it in, man. Drink in the moment.
Drink it in. I love that.
So for all those who want to keep in touch with you and get their compasses to greatness mode and follow your podcast as well, where can we find you?
You can, if you're on Amazon.com, you can buy the book. It's called Unlocking Greatness. If you want to come to my website, we've got a newsletter every week. We've got a podcast. We've got a lot of great stuff. It's charlieharary.com, HARARY.com, or unlockinggreatnessbook.com. That'll take you in, and you'll see the blog, the videos, the audio. We got a whole bunch of stuff there that, we send out to people, and just continue talking about strategies and ways that we can become the best people that we can be.
That's what I'm talking about. Well, there you have it, folks. The wonderful Charlie Harary, unlocking all sorts of greatness.
Thank you. What an honor to be on your show. Really, really appreciate it. And continued success for all the wonderful work that you do and all the greatness that you unlock.
Oh, will do indeed, because I heard one guy at a Toastmasters contest say that I'm not tired of winning.
Winning, you never get tired of winning. That's the game.
That's right. Not only wins for myself, but also for those I care about.
That's right. That's the key.
Thanks a bunch for your listening ears on the Going North podcast. I hope you really, really enjoyed that episode. If you enjoyed the episode, be sure to share it with your friends and family, especially those who love podcasts and love listening to some inspiration and motivation. And keep a lookout for the sequel to Going North, Tips and Techniques to Advance Yourself in October 2018. And if you'd like to connect with me directly, feel free to shoot me an email at dombrightmon@gmail.com. Make the